This is Dueling Pistols, where history draws first and legends never die. No fluff, no filters, just raw stories of grit, blood, and legacy. Triggered by Black Flag. Welcome back, friends, to the show. I am your host, Brian Call, and I'm joined by my brother, Brent Call. How are you, Brent?
I'm well, thank you.
Right on. We're getting right back into the book by Hampton Sides, Blood and Thunder, the epic story of Kit Carson and the conquest of the American West. Last week, we heard about Brodus, was his name?
Yeah.
Was it Brodus? Brodus? Getting his arm shot off and gangrene.
Well, he shot his arm, and then he dragged his feet, removing said arm, which, understandable. You know, it's not like they basically had one of the guys who went Sweeney Todd, pulled a straight razor out, cut through it, and then some carpenter man came by with a saw. Who knows how sharp that saw was. They cut
it through the bone. His dad got killed by a burning tree limb
Carson's
that fell
dad.
on him. Carson's dad.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And he is about 19 or 20 now, and he went on his first trapping expedition illegally down to basically Mexico, where none of the land had been touched really for trapping, dodging Indians and stuff like that.
And Mexicans.
Yeah. So getting into the book, we just talked about, it's basically, what's the year? 8? He's 19. I forget what the year was, but basically we just learned a little bit about the Navajo Indians, or the Dene, as they call them, the people. And we're kind of diving into this part of the book, and it's fascinating. I developed a whole new level of respect for the Navajo Indians, the tribes, and what they're about when I read this book. So this gets good. It gets real good. Makes you think about your own value system as well, how you live life. You know, anytime I read sort of a book from the past and then I contrast that with today, even though they had so many things harder, some of the things they didn't have hard, it seems like they were just happier though, in some ways. They certainly had a thirst for adventure and a disregard for danger that we don't really possess at this time.
Yeah.
Like, I love adventure, but I'd say on a whole in society, we don't. I want to make a t-shirt. I just, someone sent it to me. I said it in a film not too long ago, one of the gritty films. And it was, if none of us fall off this cliff, we got it made. No, it was, if none of us fall to our death, we got it made. It was me and you.
We were going to find my bear right there. Because it was.
Yeah, it's true. As long as none of us fell to our death, we were home free.
We're talking like about 40 yards. Stretch.
It was a shortcut to where we needed to go, and it was awesome. But yeah, if you fell, you were gonna probably die. So yeah, but don't fall. You know,
it's that simple, folks. Don't fall.
You know,
Don't
there
do
is
drugs,
there is some wisdom in taking risk, where the result, the likelihood. So risk is a factor of two items. Do you know what they are?
No.
Impact and likelihood.
Okay.
Those are the two factors of risk. Okay.
Mm-hmm. The impact of the action, the likelihood of it happening.
Yeah. If the impact is, I scratched my knee. Okay. If the impact of it is death, okay, then you weigh that against the likelihood. What's the likelihood of I scratching my knee? Super high. But what's the impact? Big deal. You scratched your knee. What's the likelihood of falling off the cliff? Extremely low. But what's the impact? Death. Super
impactful.
So now it's like, well, where does it? So when likelihood and impact, that's where people usually have disasters. When impact is high and likelihood is low, that's when you need to be. That's when you need to be on the lookout. Right there. I mean, when the likelihood is high and the impact is high, usually we all say, "I'm out."
Yeah, I'm good. It's like bull riding,
right?
I feel like that's just a steady incline.
So there you have it. Back from my auditor days. Okay, here we go. It was odd in a way that the Navajo posed such a threat, for collectively they did not have a reputation for being particularly fierce or effective warriors. They seldom fought in large numbers, and they lacked the highly developed warrior societal they lacked the highly developed warrior societies typical among many plains tribes. The Navajos avoided killing whenever possible, because theirs was a culture that had a deep-seated fear and revulsion of death. They wanted nothing to do with corpses or funerals or anything connected with mortality. When a person died inside a Navajo dwelling, the round, windowless, domed roof hogan made of mud and timber, the body had to be removed from the structure by bashing a hole in the north wall and pulling the corpse through it. Then the hogan had to be destroyed.
Why the North? Like
the taint could never be washed out, Brent. The presence of death led to witchcraft. It lured resentful ghosts and evil spirits. It upset the fragile order of things. Very superstitious people, the Navajos. Very. The Navajos did not have a concept of the devil in any sort of Judeo-Christian sense. There was no single evil spirit permeating the world and counterpoised against good. But the ghosts of the dead were devilish enough. They were vexing and malicious and unimaginably frightening. And they were everywhere. They could even invade a person's dreams. The Navajos believed in a class of witches called Skinwalkers, who were said to put on wolf pelts and dig up graves.
Remember I was talking about the Navajo guy touching the other day? Yeah. So he got mad at somebody because they were making jokes about skinwalkers, this other dude from New Mexico that he knew.
Yeah.
And he got in his face with his little high-pitched voice, and me and this other guy had to restrain him about it. And to this day, I still know jack about skinwalkers.
You're about to learn.
He was so violently adamant about us not making jokes about it. Violently, literally violent.
Yeah. You'll see why.
And I still don't know anything about them.
They're everywhere, Brent.
Oh, great.
The skinwalkers could be seen prowling around at night on all fours. They had pallid white faces and red glowing eyes, and chanted holy prayers backward to invoke evil deities. They desecrated graves and stole funerary trinkets and jewelry. Funerary.
Like a funeral?
I don't know. No, it's a word you're going to have to look up, that one. Funerary trinkets and jewelry. They removed the dead person's flesh and ground it up to make a lethal poison called corpse powder, which the skinwalkers blew into people's faces, giving them the ghost sickness.
The ghost sickness.
Even a fingernail paring or a strand of hair from a dead person could be used by a skinwalker to perform diabolical things.
So, like, be careful of, like, your fingernails and your hairnail.
A people so unnerved by death could never be great warriors. Then, too, the Navajo social structure was even looser than that of most American Indian tribes. Their absence of any political authority, their lack of a capital or central gathering place, their fractured allegiance to some 60 individual clans and countless local outfits, such factors were not conducive to formulating military strategy on a large scale. Yeah. But the Navajos were perhaps the unparalleled masters of the raid. Small-scale warfare suited them. They were an evanescent people, proud thieves on horseback, adroit in the techniques of the swift attack and the quick disappearance. Usually the raids were carried out by young men thirsty for adventure and ambitious to accumulate new wealth. Often these exuberant young warriors rode off against the wishes of their fathers and uncles and the older men of the tribe who had already won their wealth and had lived long enough to understand that raids had far-reaching consequences. Once on the warpath, the young men dismissed such talk and prepared themselves for battle. In the days before a raid, they sat in sweat lodges to cleanse themselves. They sang songs to Monster Slayer, the great war god of Navajo legend, chanting, "Our enemies shall die, the coyote and the crow and the wolves shall carry away every last morsel of their flesh." They assembled stone clubs and fastened eagle feathers to their shields. They tattooed their bodies with menacing images to make themselves symbolically invisible to the enemy. They sprinkled corn pollen over their shields. Then they pulled on their buckskin battle armor and set off on horseback for the Spanish ranches to the east.
Corn pollen?
Yeah, that's what it said, corn pollen.
What's corn pollen get to do?
You know, they like their corn. Navajo warriors could be quite skittish about their raids, and they sometimes sought the wisdom of hand tremblers to divine the outcome of a contemplated attack. Other times they visited a stargazer who would consult the heavens for answers by rubbing under his eyelids a preparation whose recipe included filmy water that had been painstakingly collected from the eyes of an eagle. Yeah, that's what it says.
There ain't that much water in an eagle eyeball. How many eagles they taken out?
Painstakingly collected from the eyes of an eagle.
That sounds like that task was originally given to like the a-hole of the tribe to keep them preoccupied.
It says, this is wild, huh? I like their sang songs to Monster Slayer, the great war god of Navajo legend. Monster Slayer.
Monster Slayer. So
Makes sense.
I had a discussion with someone the other day that there's a fine line between gritty and gross. It rides a really fine line. Like, you've seen Waterworld.
Yeah.
Okay, remember when he pops out the eyeball and he offers, like, to the chick, he's like, eyeball? Mm-hmm. And she looks at it and she's like, no, thank you. And he shrugs it and pops it in his mouth and goes back to what he was doing. Is that gritty or is that gross?
Gritty. Back to the book. It says that the wives of warriors were under strict instructions not to leave their hogans until the men had returned, hopefully successful from their martial adventures abroad. For if the women did stray from their homes, for whatever reason, Brent, it was widely believed that their husbands would encounter bad luck. If a coyote crossed their path, the warriors had to turn back. If they stepped on a bear track, if they saw a snake shedding its skin, if they accidentally ate during an eclipse, if they found to their dismay that one of their party was wearing his blanket with the stripes crossways, then the endeavor could be doomed. Sounds like a bunch of athletes on a basketball team.
100%. 100%.
Well, I listen to my music on this ear with this right here, and I chew gum on that side. And then if I wear this jersey that I haven't washed for 6 months, we win the game.
I can't wash my underwear. If I wash my underwear, we will lose this season.
It's like the super fan, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You sit in that chair while we watch the game. I'll sit over here and we see if there's every time we do that, the Patriots win.
Yeah.
So back to the book, it says, but if all went well, they reached their target and waited in the early morning stillness. Just before dawn, they descended, sending up the blood-curdling cry. Within a few minutes, they would take horses, cattle, women, children, anything they could drive off or scoop up in their dusty stampede. Sometimes the purpose of the raid was to steal back a Navajo captive who had been taken by the New Mexicans. Liberating a Navajo slave was always cause for rejoicing, although often the captive, who perhaps had been sold into slavery as a young child and become acclimated to Spanish culture, might be terrified by the attacking horsemen and fearful of returning to a tribal life that existed only as a dim memory. Mainly, though, the Navajo raiders were interested in obtaining sheep and goats. The Navajo, almost alone among American Indians of the West, were primarily a pastoral people. Shepherds, shearers, eaters of mutton, drinkers of goat's milk, master spinners of wool. Navajo followed the slow, watchful life known among anthropologists as transhumance. That's right, transhumance. A methodical semi-nomadism built around the seasonal moving of flocks to higher and lower ground in search of grass. This way of life was, in fact, an ancient and widespread practice throughout the world, but nearly unheard of in North America. So basically, it sounds like, the Middle East, sort of David and Goliath kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
And the Philistines would run down and raid everybody and run back. But yeah, they had that sort of
semi-wild herd almost.
Yeah, and they kind of they kind of acted like they were raising cattle and farming and all that, and they kind of did, but they also stole a lot of it.
Yeah.
As pastoralists, the Navajo lifestyle was in some sense more akin to that of ancient Greeks, Hebrews, and Arabs than to contemporary native tribes of Native America. That's what I just said. Yeah, see, I'm ahead of it. The famous loomed wool blankets of the Navajos were among the finest in the world, patterned in bold, crisp, geometric designs of red and black, and so tightly woven it was often said that they could hold water. Wow. On the Santa Fe Trail, one Navajo blanket was worth 10 buffalo robes.
Dang.
Yeah, makes
Textile
sense.
for the win.
Makes sense though, given the utility of it. It's lighter, probably just as warm.
Not as scratchy.
More efficient. It can dry out. It's wet. It's warm even when it's wet.
Mm-hmm. Probably lighter.
Mm-hmm.
Easier to move around.
Probably. Absolutely. Lighter. For the Navajos, everything revolved around the sheep. They talked directly to their flocks, gave them pollen to eat, and sang quaint songs to them on cold winter nights to protect them from freezing. The sheep is your mother, the Navajo told their children. The sheep is life. Most of their implements and artifacts were made from the hides, bones, and sinews of sheep and goats. Navajos slept on sheepskins. They made their carrying sacks from wool blankets sewn together with soapweed stalks. They ate every part of the animal, lung, liver, head, heart, even the blood, which they boiled and mixed with corn mush to make a thin, pinkish gruel. A special Navajo delicacy was sheep intestines tightly wound around a string of fat and roasted directly on the coals.
That does not sound appetizing.
A special delicacy was sheep intestines,
Mm-hmm.
tightly wound around a string of fat and roasted directly on the coals.
It's kind of like a pork crackle, kind of. Deep fried fat.
I ate a lot of intestines when I was in Japan, and I just ate a lot of it. It was grilled, and then we just take it off the grill hot, and it's just the stomach, the long tube cut into looks kind of like calamari almost, a little thicker, just like a hose that's been chopped into 1-inch sections. You throw it on, but it sometimes it just tastes like poop. Sometimes it just did. I mean, there's no way around it. It just had a poop. It had poop in it. Taste. Period. The end. It was like cooked and burnt, but it had a like meaty taste,
but a tang to it,
and it smelled a little like poop. Other times, no, but often yes. And sometimes in some areas they want the little bit of poo left in there, the residue. Like I toured a plant.
Hold on, they want the residue.
Yeah, I was in Greeley, Colorado, where I toured the meatpacking plant up there. I think they slaughter, I want to say 3,000 cows a day or something like that.
Dang.
Wow. Maybe it's 3,000 pigs and 1,000. I don't know. It's a lot of cows.
It's a lot of slaughter.
It is. And you walk in, it's a wild tour. It's a wild tour, folks.
Do they even give tours
Oh,
anymore?
dude, I got it. I was the auditor. So I had to audit the place for safety standards and all kinds of stuff.
Weird.
Yeah, so I documented the process for the plant, and then I had to...
I guarantee you, Brian, they thought good and hard about who they were going to send there. And they were like, this savage can go. This won't scar him.
I had just killed an elk like a month before with Ben, cousin Ben, in the middle of nowhere at like negative 10 degrees. And then we proceeded to try to pack that thing. You were there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was that same time frame.
Is that where we tried to make the skids?
Yes, we did. We had a bright idea to try to send a full-grown elk down a snowy pass on a sled we built out of ropes we lashed together. We didn't want to pack it, dude. It was huge. It worked. It worked until
also kicking it down the hill would have done the exact same thing.
Yeah, it would have.
It worked for about 10 feet, and then it disconnected from the skid, and then it just hit a tree.
Our sled shattered. It broke into a million pieces, and then that elk just went until it got stuck in some trees, and we ended up just breaking it down and then packing it out like old-fashioned style. But we thought we could out invent.
The Indians did this. The Indians.
Anyway, my point was, I just come back from harvesting a couple of bulls, packing them out, fresh meat, gutting, skinning, cleaning an animal, bringing it home, eating it. It was very satisfying. I was in my early 20s. It'd been a while since I'd just done it start to finish on my own. We grew up hunting, but this was like I had taken a long break because of college and my mission and things like that. So here I am. I get this bull. We get it out. And then I go into this meat plant and I'm walking around and I'm like, this is barbaric compared to what I did with that elk. What I did with that elk was so natural. It felt so human and so normal. What I saw in the meat packing plant was a little morbid and mass production and mass killing and it stank. The meat stank. The whole place was pretty vile. Anyway, I'm getting on a tangent here. We went to the meat packing plant and you grab the intestines and they put it on this little squeegee machine. And literally it goes through the inside of the intestine and shoves all the poop out. And the poop gets caught into like a little chute, like the half digested matter, whatever's in the digestive tract in the intestine. It's like 100 feet of intestine. It's just like it goes through it and pulls it through and squeegees it out. Well, there's another line. One went that way, and the other line was just some person there that just put their finger around it and just stripped it, right, and squeezed it out like through a straw. That side went to a different country because that country wanted the intestine with a little poop in it, a little bit of fecal matter, and half digested meat, food, and bacteria and bile and all that. The other one that went on the machine would scrub it too clean for the likes of that country that wanted. It was an Asian country that wanted.
Surprise!
the poopy one. And so, yeah, it was pretty wild. And so there was 2 sets of baskets and I was thinking, I probably got a little bit of both in Japan, a little bit of both. Cause sometimes it tasted like poo. Sometimes it didn't.
Maybe
so
they
much.
just didn't squeeze it too hard sometimes.
But, yeah, so according to this book, those intestines were delicious, especially wrapped around a string of fat and roasted on coals. When the Spaniards arrived in the 1500s, the Navajos found that the tough and sure-footed churro sheep, which the conquistadors brought with them, was perfectly suited to their harsh rock world. Originally adapted for the spare environment of upland Iberia, the spindly-leg churro could eat nearly anything and travel long distances and climb steep cliffs. Churro. Churro. Churro.
Isn't that going to bring anything else to go with that?
The churro's wool. I mean, aren't churros those little fried?
Yeah.
You know, Charles Barkley's always making fun of the size of the women in San Antonio because all the churros they eat. Isn't that it? Cinnamon.
These things got crazy horns.
What? Is that a churro?
That says Navajo churro sheep.
Wow. It's got horns. Huh.
It's got 2 sets of horns. This is like a demonic looking sheep.
Wow.
It's got horns coming over the top and underneath.
That almost looks kind of evil.
Right?
That looks evil.
Right?
So it looks like it has horns coming out of the head like a normal goat. But then out the side of the head, it has horns that curl downward in the same way that the ones curl upward.
Yeah.
I didn't know that even existed.
Yeah. Look at that. That looks like a Satanist. Like
it looks like a drawing of like, what's that satanic symbol?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to think of.
Baal or Baal or whatever.
Something like that.
I've seen satanic goat heads like that where it grows like that. I didn't know that they actually existed.
I didn't either.
That's wild. Folks, you got to look that up. Churro. Churro.
I mean, I'll throw something up, but man, that just looks like something out of like a Greek story.
Yeah, that doesn't look like that looks like made up creature. Didn't know that. Man, things you learn. So there we have it. The Navajo churro. So it says the churro's wool was tight and coarse, and because it contained a little natural oil, other breeds of sheep grew hair, often greasy with lanolin. It could be spun without needing washing. So
yeah,
since
their
there's no
hair
water,
looks really long. It's not curly. Their wool's not.
That's interesting. So they made their blankets out of that particular wool. It's probably a lost art. The horse, which also came with the arrival of the Spanish, profoundly changed Navajo life as well. Perhaps most significantly, horses gave the Navajos the speed and mobility to become sheep robbers on a large scale, thinning the flocks of the long and vulnerable Rio Grande Valley with impunity. The horse thus accelerated their pastoral culture. Less than a century after the arrival of the Spanish, that's 100 years, the sheep had become the Navajo currency, their mark of status, their food and clothing and livelihood, and the centerpiece of their Bedouin life, a form of movable wealth. So if you're Kit Carson, you come in and kill the sheep.
That's the move. Just murder all the sheep.
Well, kill the buffalo and kill the sheep, cut down the orchards, get rid of the corn.
Get rid of the food source.
Yeah, what are you going to do in the desert with millions of people if you can't feed them? Fight.
Donner party.
And then we'll get into what happens. Here we go. But the Navajo were far more than raiders of flocks. They also grew crops, tended orchards, carried on a vigorous trade, staged elaborate rituals, and composed epic stories and songs of fastidious tonal complexity. The Navajos had a hand in everything, it seemed. They were horse people, cattle people, farmers, hunters, gatherers, weavers. They even occasionally ventured out onto the prairie to hunt bison like the Plains Indians did. They were clear-eyed pragmatists and far-out mystics. They were not sedentary like the Pueblos, but neither were they strictly nomadic like the Utes. They were the great in-betweeners, hard to pin down, semi-wanderers, rooted to their land but moving widely over it from season to season to make the best use of a stark desert topography. The Navajos, with their linguistic cousins, the Apaches, had ventured down the spine of the Rockies from the bitterness of Athabasca in what is now northern Canada and Alaska.
Wow, that's pretty far north.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. This is where these people are quite interesting. It's different. It's tempting to imagine that they simply held a council in some godforsaken snowdrift beneath the northern lights and decided once and for all that they'd had enough of the cold. Yeah, that's what I would have done.
Yeah.
Screw Montana.
Let's move. Let's move.
And the north. I'm out. It says
that's a trek, man.
But in fact, their southward migration does not appear to have been a determined exodus. Rather, it was undertaken slowly in many haphazard and circuitous waves. The Athapascans began flooding into the southwest sometime around AD 1300. Late arrivals to the region, the Navajos split off from the Apaches and then quickly evolved from a primitive culture of hunter-gatherers to perhaps the most supple and multifarious of all the southwestern peoples. Over a few short centuries, the Navajos improvised a life that borrowed something from every culture they encountered, spinning it into a society that was entirely their own. So yeah, they're from the north, and their direct brothers are the Apaches, which they came from the north with and split off. So they speak a very similar language as well. Their creation story, called the Emergence, is thought by some anthropologists to be an allegory for their long migration from Canada. Retold in night chants and rituals performed during the winter months, the Emergence captures much that is unique about the Navajo. Their sense of having been wandering exiles through most of their history, perpetual outsiders expelled from one country after another, forced to complete a complicated series of journeys through strange dark lands until they finally lit on the glittering world, as they called their present home. Their tendency to view themselves as a tribe apart from others, a kind of chosen people of the Southwest, convinced of their spiritual relationship to the gods and confident in the power of their rituals, and yet simultaneously a tribe eager to absorb the ideas and implements of others and to mingle with other peoples. If the Navajo indulged in a tribal pride that bordered on arrogance, it was an arrogance cut with an extraordinary impulse to accept other traditions, a natural ease for ushering in new ways and even new blood. Progressive.
Very.
In a sense, the Navajo were the most American of the American Indians. They were immigrants, improvisationists, mongrels. They were mobile and restless, preferring to spread out as far as possible from one another over large swatches of country while still remaining within the boundaries of their land. They inhaled the essence of other cultures, taking what they liked and adapting it to their own ends, and they were never finished. Navajos hated to complete anything, whether it was a basket, a blanket, a song, or a story. They never wanted their artifacts to be too perfect or too closed-ended, for a definitive ending cramped the spirit of the creator and sapped the life from the art. So they left little gaps and imperfections, deliberate lucinae that kept things alive for another day. To them, comprehensiveness was tantamount to suffocation. They didn't like to make a final choice here.
So mongrel, I think in the sentence that they're using it is, so it says mongrel, a dog of no definable type or breed. So when it says they're mongrels, I think they're trying to say like you can't put them into a bucket.
They're mutts.
Yeah, they're kind of mutts. They're kind of like also like jack of all trades. They're not, they hunt bison, but they also are into their sheep, they're herders, they've got gardens. Like it's hard to put them into like just one little category. Yeah. That's what I think.
Aesthetically and literally, Navajos always left themselves an out. Yeah, let's get married, maybe. Right?
Let's get married, maybe, yeah, okay?
Yeah. And then, but, just in case things aren't just right, there's an out. Even today, Navajo blankets often have a faint imperfection designed to let the creation breathe. A thin line that originates from the center and extends all the way to the edge, sometimes with a single thread dangling from its border. Tellingly, the Navajos call this intentional flaw the spirit outlet.
Interesting.
Superstitious, man.
They're very superstitious. Can't go on a raiding party. That snake is shedding its skin.
Yeah, I've been around some people that have very, very superstitious type beliefs. Knock on wood, all the things. Black cats.
We don't have 13 floors. The 13th floor in a lot of major buildings doesn't exist.
Yeah, I'm not that way. So I'm kind of like, bring on the 666 and the number 13 and the this and the that. Like I'm like,
your hippie hoodoo doesn't affect me.
I'm rolling on.
Yeah.
Although I do think in some ways there's you're probably tempting fate, but I'm gritty like that. So
I'm popping eyeballs.
Even today, it says, going back to the book, it says, in their raids as well, they never completed their work. With an eye on the next season, Navajo warriors were careful not to take all the sheep from the Spanish settlements they attacked. They needed them to rebuild them back, right? The ants rebuild back their supply so the grasshoppers could come back and raid them again.
Yes.
From A Bug's Life. Right?
Perfect.
So can't wipe them all out. You got to leave them with a little bit. Those poor Spanish settlements, they were worked over. They were anemic because they could never quite get ahead.
Yeah.
They invariably left several ewes and rams behind to ensure that a fine new flock would be there to rob next year.
You know how annoying that would be?
Oh, yeah.
Land Vikings.
So now we have established one party in the story, the Navajo.
Mm-hmm.
We have a picture painted. Here's the protagonist, or I'm getting
the
main character.
Yeah, the protagonist.
Here we're going into the group. Okay.
We English good well here, folks.
Chapter 3. The Army of the West. The volunteers hailed from small towns and villages, places like Independence and Liberty and Excelsior Springs, and from many unnamed crossroads in the central Missouri Valley. They numbered more than 1,600 men in all, farm boys and preachers' sons and apprentices from the Green Hills and river bottoms. In a peak of patriotism, they left their grist mills and their blacksmith shops and their young wives. President Polk in Washington called for volunteers to fight against Mexico, and the men of Missouri resoundingly answered the call. With whatever weapons and horses they might possess, they sped to Fort Leavenworth, the frontier stronghold in far eastern Kansas that was the remotest outpost of American military power. Didn't Boone die in Look at Boone's death real quick.
He died not too long after he was born.
Here in May 1846, they mustered into regiments, encamped in the grass not far from the banks of the Missouri River, where whistling steamboats churned the turbid waters, occasionally offloading passengers.
1820.
That's what I thought. 1820.
85.
1819 is when Kit Carson jumped off onto the Santa Fe Trail, I believe, somewhere in that time frame, or chopped off the arm of the dude and all that. So Boone died right about the time that Kit Carson was 18, 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives you, for those who listened to the first set podcast series on Boone, this puts it into some context for you. So you're talking right after Boone is dead. You're kind of right about his lifespan. So if you recall, Boone helped get to Kentucky and then to Missouri, and your eastern city, your biggest eastern area is right around the frontier edge, is kind of that area. And now people are moving through Kansas. They're moving west on Santa Fe. They're starting to do this westward expansion. Remember, the Appalachian Mountains were the big thing that kept foreigners on the East Coast for so long. It was just that giant mountain pass. But now that the Cumberland Gap was discovered and a trail was made, and people now have settled in Kentucky and then in Missouri and so forth, now you have all these settlements just on the other side of the Appalachian mountain range, and they are moving westward. And so President Polk said, "Hey guys, we need to conquer Mexico," or whatever. And people said, "Hell yeah." It says, each morning soldiers from the U.S. Dragoons, the mounted infantrymen who were the precursors to the U.S. cavalry, rode over and conducted martial exercises for the benefit of those volunteers, drilling them in close order and saber bayonet techniques in marching and charging and marksmanship. The Dragoons were commanded by a firm, regal man named Stephen Watts Kearny, then a colonel and soon to be a general and legendary figure on the Western Plains. Kearny's soldiers began to winnow these fresh recruits to task, at first appearance nearly hopeless. So the Army of the West is a pretty rough crew, but it says that their raw material is good enough, but they are very raw. On the eve of their departure in June, hundreds of families of the volunteers gathered around Fort Leavenworth to say goodbye. Now remember, this is 1846. So at this stage, if 1819, Carson was about 19 years old, or 1820, somewhere in there, then he's around 46 right now, right? Based on this chapter in the book. We'll have to, yeah.
That seems like a bit of a jump, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think it goes back. But check out his birth date.
Carson's birthday.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've been in the book, so things aren't fresh in my head. It says
1809.
1809. Okay, so
he was born in Kentucky in 1809.
So we're off by about 10 years on some of these numbers because he was 16 when he left, which that means 1826 roughly, or 1825 or something like that. Yeah, 1826. So 1830 roughly he was 20. Right?
Okay.
Right? 1829, he would be 30 years old. I mean, 20 years old.
20, yeah, because he was born in 1809.
Right.
Yeah.
So here they're talking about, he's about 36 maybe. Yeah, 36. So 36 years old, 35, 36 is, which makes sense. So, what was the colonel's name? It was Kearney.
Kearney, the colonel.
It was, Stephen Watts Kearney. So it says that they gathered around Fort Leavenworth, said goodbye to their families. And it says the Missouri ladies presented the assembled companies with American flags to carry into battle. They were each sewn by hand at the time.
Eesh.
And then, offering one such flag, Miss Cunningham from Clay County addressed the crowd of volunteers. We would rather hear of your failing in honorable warfare, she said, than to see you returned disgraced by cowardice. Man, nothing like a woman to get the men to...
For real. Shame.
To be men.
Shame. Get out there and die for me.
One by one, the leaders of the various companies rose to accept their flags, pledging that their men would not shirk their duty. Death before dishonor, one of them declared. The love of country is the love of God. Very patriotic. Okay. Then the next morning, the Army of the West began to march, the miles of men and animals kicking up plumes of dust along the rutted road. They had wagons with ammunition, salt provisions, hardtack. Nearly 15,000 head of cattle and oxen started out from Fort Leavenworth. Trains of pack mules huffed along too, burdened with the components of mountain howitzers and other pieces of artillery.
Mountain howitzers.
With the morning sun at their backs, they marched under the banners of E Pluribus Unum. Conestoga axles creaked under their loads as the barrels of molasses and bacon and meal rattled in the wagon beds. They were pushed along with drovers. Kearney's army followed the same grooved highway that Kit Carson had taken 20 years earlier. The Santa Fe Trail, the 2-month journey, would be arduous and kidney punishing, but at least the route was sure.
Kidney punishing because there's no water?
No, because of the...
Oh, riding on the horse.
Low back pain. This long thread across the prairie meant for commerce, but now it's an army road now. Not long out of Fort Leavenworth, the last cornfields and villages of American civilization fell away and the country opened up. The men would not see another house or settlement for nearly 800 miles.
Wow.
They had entered the expanse often marked on maps as the Great American Desert, a void on the western edge of the country that was thought to have no practical use other than to preserve for Indians. It says the United States, they considered it a perpetual wilderness, officially designated the area the permanent Indian frontier on a map.
That's cool.
So they're just like, hey,
this is Indian land.
It says that the Cherokee Indians were there and they had removed them forcibly. As the men of Missouri marched into this lonely grassland, their sense of isolation deepened, and it got real boring. It's just grass and desert. When a soldier took a fever and died, as happened often during the long march to New Mexico, he was buried in a shallow grave in the fine soil of the prairie, not far from the trail itself. The corpse was wrapped in a blanket and then in an American flag, and as part of a frontier protocol of uncertain origins, the deceased man's saddled horse was brought over to the graveside to honor him, with the man's boot dangling upside down in the stirrups.
Why?
After a 3-gun salute, soldiers tamped stones into the burial dirt to discourage wolves, but were careful not to pile them so high as to pique the interest of any wandering Plains Indians who sometimes desecrated frontier graves. Why, Brent? I don't know. It's a great question. It says, as part of a frontier protocol of uncertain origin, they put the man's saddled horse, brought it to the graveside to honor him with the man's boots dangling upside down in the stirrups. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a thing.
There you go. I don't know why, but it seems like he doesn't know either. Camped in sides. Doesn't say. As the Army of the West followed the trail, the country took on a strange and beautiful sharp spareness. Grasshoppers snapped in open expanses. Timber grew even more scarce until it played out altogether. Occasional slashes of sandbar willow greened along the meandering creeks, but otherwise the land was featureless as the rolling ocean.
It looks like it's a custom that goes back since before Genghis Khan.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Putting shoes in the stirrups of a horse like that.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. It is became to symbolize a warrior who would ride no more.
Interesting. So we're going to learn more about this army. It's moving west. Stephen Watts Kearny was the candidate to command the Army of the West. He was perfect for the job. He was cautious, pragmatic, a stickler for discipline, and he was 52 years old at the time. Who would learn of his promotion to brigadier general while he was on the trail to New Mexico. He was one of the finest and most intelligent officers in the American Army. Yeah, interesting man, by the way.
So it says here that
he's a man of principle.
But the shoes and the stirrups thing, it became a common thing. Like Abraham Lincoln, they do this at presidents' funerals, and he was the first one to do it. And the boots reversed in their stirrups are to represent a fallen leader looking back on his troops for the last time.
Poetic.
So this boots and the stirrup thing is something that's happened a lot throughout history, and that's kind of what the American pioneer version is.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, yeah, we're going to get more into this Kearny fella and where it gets interesting, and we're going to get into where Kit Carson comes into play. And Kearny and Carson are a powerful duo.
I was going to say, I was wondering, do they get along?
Kit Carson is a man of principle generally as well, with a few violent departures from that, and then back to principle again.
He's a short little ginger. He's angry. I mean, he's she's going to snap every once in a while.
He did the best he could with what God gave him. So anyway, fascinating. Hope you guys are enjoying the series. Tune in to the next episode. We're going to kick it off where we're leaving off here, but we hope you're loving the show. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one. All right, folks, I hope you're enjoying the Dueling Pistols podcast. If you like it, do us a favor and share it with a friend. Help us get this thing to grow a little bit bigger. Tell your dad, your mom, your brother, your sister, your buddy, your uncle.
Go to
your grandpa.
Hit select all, send.
Just sell it. Just share it with a friend of yours, somebody, and help us spread the word about the show. Thanks for supporting us. We'll catch you on the next episode.